it's on the agenda, then you will be allowed to do that at that time. If you'd like to speak on something that's not on the agenda, there's a general comments section at the end of the meeting. So again, thank you all for coming. Mr. Shemp, are there any revisions or corrections to the agenda tonight?
Yeah, we have some additions, some miscellaneous business, recommendations on a fundraiser or fundraisers, some ECA positions, approval of a bus route, a change in hours, some student transfers, and then I'd like to have discussion here regarding COVID a little bit toward the beginning, because I know a lot of people, that's forefront of their mind.
Very well. Okay, we'll move on to the approval of minutes from the July 21st regular session meeting. Are there questions or comments about those minutes? If there are none, do we have a motion to approve them as presented? Jim has made the motion, Kim with the second. All those in favor? 6. All those abstaining? 1. Okay, at this time we maybe we'll talk about a few COVID-related things, including our quarantine policy, and so maybe we can get some things straight here.
Right. And I'm thankful that we have Nurse Audra here tonight, because she's not in an enviable position by any means, and we appreciate her and everything she's had to do. It's a tough position to be in as a school nurse, to say the least. Preface all of this, I'm not a health professional, right? Never have been, never had aspirations of being a health professional, but we find ourselves in this position where we have to make the best decisions when it comes to education for kids, and so we're trying to do the best we can with that, and I know that we've got the best interest of kids in mind here as we discuss items relevant to our contact tracing, et cetera. Audra, I don't know if you might want to give us a little input as far as what contact tracing looks like right now, or if you want me to just go ahead and go through it like we talked about earlier. I'm okay either way, but since you're here, not to put you on the spot. If you would, yeah. Sorry, just 1 second. There's a microphone right down there. Yeah. Sorry, I put you on the spot there.
It wasn't open. Okay, so if I get a positive case called into me, the first thing I do is pull up their schedule, and I start looking at seating charts, which the teachers have all provided for the offices or me, and I look at anything less than 3 feet sitting in the classroom. So if they're all sitting in their desk, I would look at any student that is less than 3 feet. The state said as long as they're sitting 3 feet facing forward, that they are safe and I don't have to contact trace. So that's where I start. And then I start looking at PE, I look at lunch, I look at buses, any extracurricular activities that they may be involved in. And then I also, when I'm on the phone with the parent, I ask if there's any contact with any students outside of school that would be a large amount of time. And then I start gathering all those kids' names, and I start making phone calls based on the time frame that they were in contact. So whenever we contact trace, I have to look 48 hours past the date of when symptoms started. So if it started on Friday, I would have to contact trace back through Wednesday. And then the positive case is out for 10 days. There's no exceptions. You just go 10 days from when your symptoms started, or if you're asymptomatic when the test is given. Close contacts right now, we are doing a 14-day quarantine. I know the state has a 7 and a 10-day return, but they did increase their restrictions on those, on when they come back, what they have to do. So talking with the health department, they had decided that we probably need to do the 14-day right now. Hopefully that will be changing, but I don't know currently. And then I also look, and if the child is vaccinated, then I will go over with the parent as a vaccinated individual. They can return to school, but they have restrictions. They have to mask 100% of the time. They have to social distance at all times. And in the cafeteria, when they eat lunch, they have to separate themselves from anybody greater than 6 feet so that they can take their mask off. And that's for any time they're indoors. And if they're outside, they don't have to mask, but they have to be a greater than 6 feet distance at all times. And so I do go over those guidelines, and I do give the parents an opportunity at that time if they would like for their student to continue at school, and they feel that they can do these guidelines, then that's what we do, and I just mark it as that. Otherwise, I've had a couple choose to go on in quarantine because they didn't think the student would feel comfortable doing those guidelines. And I think that's about it.
Yep.
Do you have anything else?
No, the question that comes up, and I know that when it comes to the 3 feet, and just, I think we need to put out there just real succinct short statements that would be, for example, if you want to be quarantined 0 days, here are 2 options. You know, do we have 2 options for it to be quarantined for 0 days? One, if you're vaccinated and you're not positive, as long as you wear a mask for 14 days, you can come back to school, right? So vaccination would be one opportunity to have 0 days of quarantine. If you are never within 3 feet for more than 15 minutes and you have a mask on, that's another option that would be possible?
Well, I guess as long as, the state says as long as they're sitting in the desk facing, all seats facing forward, they don't have to have a mask. It doesn't matter if they're wearing a mask or not, I still have to quarantine. But as long as they're sitting in their desk facing forward. So whenever I look at seating charts, I just take it because I do put out to the teachers. I've got a lot of teachers now this week have moved their desks out as far as they can. So some of them are getting up to that 6-foot space between their desks because they're just using their whole room to try to separate these kids. But as long as they're sitting forward in their desk, then I can go to 3 feet. And so I'm trying to instill that in the teachers, get them farther than 3 feet so that we don't have to quarantine as many. But with a mask, you still have to quarantine. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
You're still quarantined there.
You're still going to quarantine if you're closer than 3 feet?
Right, right.
But if you're 3 feet or further,
Yes, I'm going as, I just tell the teachers, make sure you're greater than 3 feet. And I've even went out to the classrooms and I've measured to make sure.
I know you have. I know you have. I know you've done.
I don't want any kids to be out that don't need to be out. So I have measured, Hope has helped me with that. We go out and make sure that if it's greater than 3 feet, we make sure that we notate that on my season charts. Yeah.
Okay. So you could be quarantined for 0 days if you're vaccinated and you wear a mask for 14 days, or if you are not within 3 feet and masked.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. The other options that are out there that we've not gone with this year to this point, because I think the input was we wanted to go with the 14 days, and that made sense for starters. We had aspirations that we wouldn't be in this position. Of course, we didn't want to see our numbers doing this. I'll share the numbers here in a minute. We didn't want to see that happen. We were hopeful we were beyond that at this point, and unfortunately, we have to have these conversations still. So we had looked at 14 days thinking that was going to be minimal impact to the entire school population. The 10-day potential quarantine that's out there, the CDC has said that, that's a possibility. That comes with other requirements. Those requirements are, and correct me if I'm wrong, Audra. So if you are a close contact, you can be out for 10 days unless you, on that 11th day, want to come back and wear a mask for 4 days. Don't show any symptoms, obviously. Monitor your symptoms. You have to eat by yourself, and you wear a mask the whole entire time.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to, the biggest thing, the mask, I think a lot of kids can do the mask, I don't think that's an issue. It's the coming back and they have to separate themselves from everyone, at least greater than 6 feet, to eat, because they have to take their mask off at that point.
Right, and so the 10-day we avoided to this point because it didn't look like something that was a reality, and they actually changed the way they did the 10-day from last year. The 10-day last year was a little different, and so we were able to lean on the 10-day last year. Now the 10-day comes with strings attached, and the hardest one for the school, I think, to accomplish is letting kids eat by themselves for 4 days with the mask on. Take the mask off, have 6 feet of distance. There may be ways to do that if we were outside eating and we didn't have 60 kids possibly returning at the same time. And maybe that's a possibility still, but that's been a hindrance to getting to go with 10 days. And I think just as much as anything, we just want to clarify this so people understand what are the requirements, what does it look like.
Right, and I think a lot of people are confused because last year we did do the 10 days, but I tried to explain that they have their guidelines for the 10 days, the state has, so.
And it feels like all along the way, we've all experienced this. It seems like the mark keeps getting moved. I mean, we've lived that where this is okay and then the mark kind of moves a little bit. And we've had it happen again here. There's one other option where after 7 days, you could come back on the 8th day if on the 8th day you have a negative test, right?
I think it's they have to take the test 5 to 7 days, and it has to be a negative at the 8th day, and then there's the stipulations going along with that as well.
So there are some schools that are pushing that and saying, hey, you can come back in a shorter time frame, even the 10. The issue becomes, and I spoke with another superintendent earlier today, the issue becomes the student who does that and then tests positive after 7 days, and now they're out 14 more days. So it doesn't just go to a cumulative 14, it goes to a reset. So now you could be out 3 weeks if we wanted to really go with that route. Is that?
Yeah, it is. They have to do their whole quarantine because if they're asymptomatic and they get a test, you go from the day the test is given. And the other thing, the health department really discouraged us last year for doing that because they felt like it would flood their testing centers, and they were for extra tests that didn't need to be done. But I mean, that was their input on it.
Okay. Any questions there? I could see putting on the school website 4 points that says, here's how many days you're out. If this, then that. I could also see the concept that we revisit this in a week and have some conversation with the health department again and see if there's anything different we can do. I was just at a workshop today in Indianapolis with 5 other school corporations, and the discussion is the amount of learning that happened last year, if you're a parent with a kid in school, it wasn't up to the level that it needs to be. And that's with us trying to stay in person as much as we possibly could. And I don't mean just North Central Park, but for us, that was a reality as well. What they're seeing is the quarantines were at least as bad as being out of school and being virtual. And if you had a kid on virtual, that wasn't fantastic last year. It should have been better, but it was the best we had at the time. So we went with it. But all these quarantines are really causing deficits for kids, and what they're seeing is that on math, for many kids, it's more than a year behind, and on language arts, it's at least a year behind, but it also depends upon your demographics, and of course, there are always, differences between individual students. So we've got to try to get this right and get kids in school more if at all possible, and we will have another meeting coming up here soon anyways, but I don't know if maybe we want to push an earlier time to maybe the 25th or whatever you guys decide as a board you think is most appropriate to revisit.
So yeah, I mean, this is maybe caught us a little off guard that we didn't expect for this to happen this year, to have this going on. I think most on the school board here are not happy with the kids we have quarantined, and are really not happy with necessarily the way the rules are set up. And I think we're going to take a hard look at changing those rules so that we don't have all these quarantines. Because honestly, last year, however many kids we had quarantined, I don't know of any that came back and tested positive later or were sick. And so it really looks like that those kids were quarantined for no reasons. Now, our hands are tied a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of people that have their hands in this, so it's just not us flying by the seat of our pants here where we change things instantly. But I think that we've kind of agreed to look at it as soon as next week to maybe we could update this after we get some guidance from from some other sources. Although we do have medical professionals on the board, probably we need to talk with others before we would make wholesale changes. Were there any changes that we wanted to make this evening? Anybody else want to make some comments where we could make it, try to loosen it up a little bit?
I will say last year, a lot of my positives were moving from family members, but this year our positives are coming from kids. Like there's a huge difference in this that I'm seeing in ours. It's just to throw it out there. It's a whole different population.
And just to go over the numbers right now, our numbers are significantly higher than they were last year. We have 146 quarantines. Now, if we take a look at those rules, those numbers might be lower, right? We do have 9 positive cases in students right now. The high school has 86 quarantined, the middle school 14, Rockville Elementary 34, and Turkey Run Elementary 9. On the staff side, we have 3 positive cases that are current. We have 7 out for quarantine. So those numbers are significantly higher than they were last year. Having a week to look at those and our processes, I think, makes good sense. We just, there was, I don't believe there was a way to foresee that it would go this quickly. Last year was not, it did not ramp up like this last year.
I would like to comment because I'm not sure I'm going to be here at the meeting. So every indication did say we should have been ready for this. We heard for a while that the kids' cases were revving up. We do know it's kids spread. We are significantly higher than what we were last year. So dialing back the mitigation that we had last year doesn't make any sense. You would at least keep what you have. You would not dial back. You said it didn't ramp up like it did last year, but we had all these things in place when we were set to protect those that were older. Now we're seeing the spread in kids. And I don't know everybody here, but by my job, I'm a nurse practitioner in the NICU, and I see peds patients as well, and I'm telling you, we are seeing it. We are seeing kids who are sick. I don't wish that on my kids, and I don't wish it on anybody else's. I will always side on the air of caution, and I think that if we decide to dial back, I think it would be the wrong thing to do, and I think it would be I think would put kids at risk. I will not, I can tell you right now, whatever it is, if it's to dial back, will not support it. So I think, I may be outvoted and that's okay. I'm just telling you from my experience. I think we have to be cautious because we're still on the upswing of this. We haven't even plateaued, and by all indication, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And if we want to keep kids in school, which I think we all do, I think we all have the same goals. We want to keep kids in school, and we want kids to not be quarantined as much. But that's when you add extra layers of mitigation and extra things that you can do to protect kids, to keep them in class, not dial them back and hope for the best.
Any other board members want to make a comment?
I guess I'd like to make a comment. I think there might be more, I think we might have left people with more questions than answers today, but just to reiterate, we are going to meet here shortly next week, I believe, and I guess there's 7 different people up here with 7 different viewpoints, and my point of view is I want the kids in school, and I think these state guidelines are not state rules. I think the governor has left it up to us to make our own rules, and I think we need to do that. I think quarantining 15 kids because 1 kid is positive doesn't make sense to me. I don't think those 14 other kids are likely going to test positive, but just so I guess the public's aware, we are going to address it, and I assume there will be a vote, and but there are different viewpoints up here, so.
Anybody else want to comment? This would be the time if somebody wanted to talk about COVID, because we're talking about it, if anybody wanted to make a comment on it. Go.
Yeah, is there any way, I don't know if we want to pass the microphone or if you want to deal with that or not?
So Today, the volleyball team was entirely wiped out. So the question from the volleyball standpoint is, how is cheerleaders still intact and football players intact, with the entire volleyball team wiped out? I'm not trying to get the football team quarantined. I'm not trying to get the cheerleaders quarantined. I'm just trying to figure out. I'm okay with quarantine if I have proof that the kid needs proof, you know. But as far as I understand, the girls didn't sit by her on the bus. Most of them didn't sit by her on the bus. When you play volleyball, you're not constantly with them for 15 minutes or more.
Yeah.
No classroom time with them. So I guess it's a question for Audra. And unfortunately, no time to talk to Audra before tonight.
Yeah, well, and let me try to answer from the outside a little bit, because I don't know all the details of it. Here's how I know it's been handled in the past. So if we had a team that ended up quarantined, there was somebody on the team who was likely positive, and if those students were in a huddle for practice, they're together for any period of time that's over that time frame, they ended up, yes, you end up with the whole team out. Does that mean the whole team's quarantined out of school? Not necessarily, and that may or may not be the instance here. I'm just speaking to it in general, because I know we run into all of these HIPAA guidelines that we have to be really cautious of. So as soon as we single out a team, it pretty quickly can get to the individual is, and we sure as heck don't want to blame anybody for a team being out. I know you don't either. I know that's not the case, but I'm not sure if that entirely answers your question or not. Okay. Okay. Not even close. Okay.
Good try.
Get-
And as far as the kid gets to come back with a vaccination, that is the same as letting athletes separate themselves in the classroom. Special treatment. Especially when a vaccinated person can get COVID.
Yeah, I didn't make that rule. I'm sharing it, right? I'm sharing that rule.
Yeah, but that is the state guideline that we follow. It's not one that we made up.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe you don't want to, can't answer me right now as far as the volleyball team.
I can tell you how things are looked at when it comes to a team. First I talked with Mr. Schultzky, and then all the coaches. The coaches are brought into it, and that's how it's brought about. Of course, I'm not there. I can't say, oh yes, these girls were together, and I'm not there, but that's where I go with it. So whenever something like that, it's coming down from the coaches and the administrative part of it to give guidance on that. So that's how I have done it in the past. Can't say anything. So,
So if there's 3 coaches and one of them's going to, I'll show up and I'm good with it. Does that work? How does that work?
It really is going to revert back to, because are you asking, so can one of the coaches come and coach the team? Is that, I mean, yes, in theory they could. I don't know if the AD would want to, what team are you bringing? Are you bringing the full team? Are you bringing kids who are freshmen and putting them in a varsity situation? I don't know. It gets into the whole competition side of that, and whether or not,
All I know is that there's like 8 seniors along the team. They sit in the back of the bus, they sit one per seat. So the bus ride wasn't an issue.
yeah.
So that is a team. That is a varsity. That can fill the court.
So can you guys tell them the point of contact from which they're being quarantined from? Because from my understanding, that's always been the
just like, I can tell, like, if it's a classroom, like, whenever I call a parent, I'll say, it's the classroom that I have, but I cannot pinpoint down and say, this is the classroom we've been in, because that can pin down with what student I'm talking about.
2 minutes.
right? So I'll tell you,
So,
so I know how, again, from the, sorry, are you, sorry. I know how that mistake could be made. Again, I'm not entirely giving you details of that situation, but if we have a kid who's out of class for whatever reason on Monday, let's say, they're not in school, Audra goes and pulls a seating chart and says, this kid sits right next to that kid. She sends over, here's the list. Somebody has to be able to say, Johnny was absent that day or whatever. And that could be a mistake that happens, and that's where we have to rectify that.
I try to look at everybody's attendance. Of course, I know, I make mistakes too. And I'm also trying to look at vaccinations to make sure I hit anyone that's vaccinated right now too. So when I pull one kid, I try to look at all these variables. And I listen, yeah.
I mean, this situation, I mean, Audra is put in a horrible situation, and it's a no-win situation. And I mean, for what we had to go through last year with thousands of kids quarantined, and having a mistake here or there, that was probably a lot less than I would have, if I was doing it. So all we can say as far as going is this forward is that, we've agreed kind of as a board to look at this here in the next week because we feel like it's urgent and see if we can't do better for what we think, and it's just an uphill battle against, CDC and state guidelines. So as far as Audra goes, I know there's specifics she can't discuss, but she's put in an awful situation, and she's done a wonderful job over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I want to say that it was talked about in the initial coaches meeting, but I wasn't in there, and it doesn't matter if it didn't make it to you, right? It doesn't matter. If you didn't get the info, then we didn't share it enough, and so we needed to share that more, obviously. When it comes to the virtual piece, I hear what you're saying. One of the rationales to go to having a meeting within a week would be that it would be possible to still come back with a negative test if we went to that 7-day. If we wanted to say, hey, after 7 days, you can get tested if you're negative. I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to be playing if you're positive. We can't. So, but if after that 7 days, so that was part of the imperative to hurry up and have another meeting in a week. It was my thought process anyways. I don't know if hopefully that is consistent with board members, but
Hey, I think we're all in that same boat with you as parents. I mean, I think the guidelines put it forth do not necessarily give you that option, right? And that's kind of why we're in this situation. That's all I can say really right now, is that that we've agreed to look at it here within the next week and see if we can't make something that's better for us. Because, putting a kid in virtual, I mean, wouldn't protect them on the athletic field from getting quarantined. And it all comes down to this, right? I mean, best thing to do to stop the spread is not to have sick kids in school. So if your kid's sick, don't send them to school. I don't want to see, I mean, it's a bad deal to have kids picked up from school and taken to get tested. If that's the case, then your kid shouldn't be in school. So, so, Audra can comment on that, but currently, yes. I mean, the mask, you don't get any credit for wearing masks.
And that's the way that it was last year, too? Yes, unless you're vaccinated.
So,
So, I understand exactly what you're saying, and Scott, what you just said, and Zach, but also I want to bring forth an idea. So the state has the guidelines. We can do what the state says. We can't do any less than what the state says, and we can add to it. So, right now, the state tells us we can do the 3 to 5 day testing, come back on the 7th day. Then that person has to isolate back. Then they have to come to lunch and isolate, which there's a lot of room in here, not being utilized. I suggest the 3 to 5 day deal. One, my family's already gone through COVID. I have antibodies. I never had a positive test. My antibodies don't mean a darn thing unless I have a positive test. My son just had COVID. My daughter was exposed before we even knew he had COVID, but she hadn't been around him long enough. She was isolated out of our house, moved out of our house. She's come home, not even in our house, for 24 hours, and now she has to be isolated for 14 days quarantine in our house. I suggest you guys look at the 3 to 5 day deal. At the 3rd day, she could go right now and be tested. If it comes back negative, through the health department, because I contacted Tanya to know what is going on, she can then, Tanya sends that away. That test comes back on the 6th day, might come back earlier. If it comes back negative still, she can come back to school, mask up, be away from people. My kid's willing to take that risk right now. If she comes back in 14 days and is in school, and this kid next to her that's not 3 feet wasn't quarantined, comes up positive, guess who has to go back in? 14 more days. Vicious cycle, we're gonna keep doing this. There's got to be something. I know we don't have the magic rule right now, but as a suggestion, I really like for it to be looked at, and if we come back and we have positive antibodies in our system, give us credit. If even our student has it, even though they didn't have a positive COVID test, their body's working and doing what it should do.
all right, thanks. I mean, when you start talking about antibodies and specifics, you're probably getting above my pay grade a little bit. So, thank you. You know, just one comment on that. If you test positive after the 5th day, then you have to quarantine another 14 days. So your total period could be.
That's only 10 days after that. It's not another 14 days.
And that is if you have a positive test, it's 10 days quarantine, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, it is
No,
10 days.
if you're doing the 7-day quarantine and you come back and test after 6, then you have to quarantine another 14, correct?
If you're asymptomatic.
If you're
If you go in for a test on the 5th day or whatever, and you get a positive, they're gonna go 10 days from when symptoms started or the test was given. So if you go on the 6th day, you're gonna do another 10 days, so you're gonna be out 16 days. Does that make sense?
If you're asymptomatic, they're only going to.
If you're asymptomatic.
If you're asymptomatic, is it 10 days or 14 days from the positive?
On a positive test, it's always 10 days. So it's either from 10 days from when the symptoms started, or it's 10 days from an asymptomatic test given.
So what we need to do is put down FAQ again for everybody so they can navigate this, because the conversation, you know, we can't follow it as a conversation. I don't know how many people could say, here's exactly what's happening, because we've got medical professionals in the room, multiple, and it's clear they know what's going on, but again, I'm not a medical professional when it comes to this, and so we need really simple FAQ. We're going to look at it again. I think it's the right thing to
That's
do.
part of the problem, right? Is that the rules set up are difficult to understand and follow. So are there any other comments on the COVID stuff? Does everybody kind of understand where we are at this point in time? Mrs. Seitz, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I can probably do that.
What you think?
I'm teaching virtual and I'm teaching in person. On behalf of the teachers, I'm going to tell you I'm at a point, and most of us are, we met in the hallway this afternoon, we are at a point that we were last October. I'm a blended ambassador. I do blended learning with my students on the Canvas platform. So myself, Letha Stone, Miranda Gerald, and Jessica Jeffers are a little bit ahead of the curve. Okay, my Canvas is set up, my kids know where to go. A lot of other teachers are just getting their platform set up now. I have 30 kids out. I know teachers in this building that have more than that. We are doing double the work at this point. I have spent 9 hours in this building after school. 3 last night, 3 the night before, and I'll be here after I get done here, videotaping lectures for my students that are out. I can't answer them, their emails and their questions during the day. I have a student teacher in my room, and I teach 6 preps right in a row. I have a 30-minute lunch, and I'm answering emails. Last night at 9:30, I was answering emails till 10:15. I woke up at midnight because a little hamster in my head was still going. Because I'm thinking, oh my God, what if they ask another question? So I got up and I checked my email. I had 3 more emails from students, because that's when they're doing their work, obviously, because they don't sleep. But what I'm telling you is that we are really stressed at this point. And if it's not going to get any better, what are we going to do now for the kids? Because we want them in school. We want to do our jobs, but we are also splitting our duties at this point. It does nobody any good at this point. I don't know what the answers are, but I'm letting you know from a teacher's perspective in this high school, it's blown up just since Monday. So whatever decisions that you make as far as 14 days, 10 days, 7 days, it is impacting the students' learning, because regardless of what we do, it's impacting them, but it's also impacting your teachers in this building. I know 2 that are out right now that are out sick, and they're also having to do lesson plans for their in-class learners and their virtual learners.
Right, and we don't require teachers to do that if you're sick. You can take sick days. You're not expected to have to do your work while you're home in bed with COVID. That's not an expectation that I would ever put on somebody. So if that's something that needs to be stated, I'll state it right now, and if there is assistance that's needed,
Learners get their lessons.
they'll have to get them from a sub, is the only way.
We have our subs on our virtual platform.
Right. Yeah, we have to come up with something else. We can't expect the teacher to do it. I mean, you can't argue for the teacher to do it, right? I mean, that's,
What's happening, because that's.
but that's not, what I'm saying is that's not the expectation. It's absolutely not. I'll say I have no expectation that teachers would, from their home while sick with COVID, go teach 7 classes or 1 class for that matter.
I think I can speak from just last year how thankful everybody on the board was that we have a community that has administrators and teachers in it that are dedicated enough to go through what we did last year so that our kids were in school most of the time. It was rough at times, but our kids are in school, and that was the right place to be. And I think, everybody appreciates what all the teachers are doing and the staff. I know it's not easy on them. It's not easy on anybody. Nobody wants to be in this situation. But but here we are, and we got to make the best of it. We can't, from my perspective, sitting up here, I don't want to leave kids behind. I don't want kids being. We got to just do the best we can.
I don't want to diminish that sacrifice they're making. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm saying I don't expect that to have to happen. There are people who have done it. You're exactly right. There are people who have done it, and they've gone way over and beyond, and it's absolutely appreciated, but I don't expect somebody to have to do that while they're sick. That just is unfair, absolutely.
Okay. Are there any other COVID comments anybody would like to make? Because we're going to move on to the rest of the meeting. I do appreciate everybody coming and showing up. It is important, and all of us want kids in school and want kids to do their extracurriculars, and we're working on it. So, any other board members want to make a comment on it? Okay, we will move on, and that will be the last we talk about on COVID this evening. We'll move on to the financial business, payroll and claims. Mr. Schimpf?
Major thing, you're going to see the numbers are significantly lower this time because that stipend was a one-time stipend, and so the total claims for the month are significantly lower month to month. But just wanted to remind you why it was so high last month.
All right, so are there questions or comments on the payroll and claims? If there are none, do we have a motion? Kim's made the motion. Second by Elise. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, financial reports. Mr. Schimpf?
Yeah, financial reports, you see, again, I always want to scan right off the bat the current balances, because those balances are your cash balances, so you're going to see education fund is strong at 2.596. We'll get into the dollars and cents some more later when I present the budget. You also see the operations fund is 4.2 million at this point. So both are strong. So I would recommend that, unless you have questions on this, you approve the fund report.
Any questions or comments on those reports? If not, do we have a motion? Gene has made the motion.
Second.
Seconded by Zach. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, ECA reports.
Yeah, extracurricular reports are there before you, as is the norm. Not anything remarkable at this point. This should be the low point for the year when it comes to the fund, because again, we start to build when the fall comes along, and if the fall holds steady and we're able to make dollars throughout fall sports, then those amounts will go up for the high school athletics as well as the middle school athletics. Both of those should increase pending any expenses.
Okay, do we have a motion? So moved. Jim's made the motion. Seconded by Kim. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, utility report.
Yeah, utility reports presented to you as part of the claims. As a review there, we don't have any large anomalies like we've seen on occasion. For the most part, the costs have remained consistent.
Okay, if there are no questions, there is no actions on the utility report. Moving on, there are no requests and communications tonight. So we'll move on to the personnel report. We have some resignations. Mr. Schimpf?
Yeah, I recommend the board approve the following resignations. Amy Newland as an aide, Jennifer Schlatter, Alexa Zimmerman, and Jamie McCullough as teachers, and Melanie Miller from softball, which is an ECA position.
Very well. Are there questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion to approve those resignations? Gina has made the motion. Seconded by Elise. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, recommendation to approve staff. Mr. Schimpf?
Okay, I've put a lot of these together because we have so many of them. I'd recommend that the board approve the following new hires, with all non-certified personnel paid in line with the non-certified handbook, and certified staff will be paid as noted. So I'm recommending the following for aides: Jennifer Cole at Turkey Run Elementary, Abigail Belt at Turkey Run Elementary as functional assistant, Allison Woods, Turkey Run Elementary, Nikaylee Norris at Park Heritage Middle School, Paula Branham, Park Heritage Middle School, and Nicole Bonomo at Rockville Elementary. If you'd like, we can stop by group, or I can read them all. Are you okay with me reading them all?
Do what?
Are you okay with me going on to each of those?
Yep,
Okay.
I think.
Custodian, Randall Pinniger, 4-hour part-time. Kitchen staff, Shika Faulkner, Melinda Ritchie, Julie Pruitt, Maisie Reynolds, Mary Lou Lewis, Patricia Mathis, Daryl Smiley, Lori Sowers. On the bus side, Terry Veach has agreed to sub for us some. I'm also asking for you to approve Mindy Barnes. We've had conversations, that's not set in stone yet as a substitute bus driver. However, I would like the option, with our difficulty of finding drivers, to go ahead and insert her name here. And Jeannie Hines as Route 18 driver, and finally Steve Reynolds as a bus driver once he completes his training, which August 26th, he should be finished. Well, he's got a test set up soon. On the teacher side, Brittany Mackey, I'm recommending as media specialist librarian at level A. Justin Pavot, music teacher, level A. Kaisha Porter, elementary teacher, level A. Ashley Mormon, as a full-time sub for life skills and long-term sub. Nikki Wilson, Title I, Rockville Elementary, Level A. Luann Spur is going to be teaching facts has been teaching facts at the middle school, Level K. And then Natalie Noonan as special ed at Park Heritage Middle School, Level A. I would recommend the board approve those as presented.
Very well. Are there questions or comments about any of those? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Zach has made a motion. Gina with a second. All those in favor? 6. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Is that an abstain?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, ECA assignments.
Yeah, each year, we update the ECA list, and you end up with a lengthy list at the start of the year here, and we have most of these positions filled. There are still some blanks on the list you're going to see there. Some of those have yet to be determined. Others have already been decided and not passed to me to get approved yet. So they've already met with people and talked about potential coaches. But this is the majority of your coaching positions, your teacher leader positions, Title I coordinator, high ability coordinator, all of those sorts of positions are included in your ECA. On FFA on page 105, if you take a look there, I want to make sure that your packet says Natalie Laube there, Laube. Is she on there? Okay.
Yep.
I had to handwrite that one in. I want to make sure that I got the right one in there. Otherwise, there should not be any additions at this time. However, there will be when we hit miscellaneous business.
I just have one correction.
Okay?
We really want to name Cole Jones Cole West, but it's Cole Jones.
Where's he at?
He's
What
the
page?
assistant junior high football coach. 101.
Cole
yeah,
Jones.
Should be Cole
yes.
Jones.
How
Yeah.
did he end up west?
I don't, he was the last time too. We're
Really?
just going to rename him.
Okay. We'll work on that. Good catch. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other
Are there any
questions?
other questions or comments on the ECA positions? If not, do we have a motion to approve? Elise has made a motion.
Second.
Seconded by Kim. All those in favor? 6. All those opposed?
Nope,
All
abstaining.
those abstaining?
Yep.
Okay, item D there is transfers.
Yep. We have, yep,
so-
E has been pulled, so recommendation to approve transfers. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, due to opportunities provided by stimulus dollars, again, an overview of budgeted dollars for stimulus will be provided during the superintendent's report. I want to give you some details on that. I know there were some questions last time about what do our stimulus dollars look like, and we'll talk about that when we get to superintendent's report. But due to that, along with our increased numbers for that matter, there are some positional changes that I want to take a look at. At last board meeting, we approved Cena Chaplin's transfer from instructional assistant to full-time substitute teacher at the North Campus. She was approved at 6.5 hours. We really need her to be approved at 7.5 hours. 6.5 does not cover the full duty of a substitute. So I wanted to make that clarification. If we could, I would ask the board to please approve increasing her hours to 7.5. I would also recommend that Ashley White continue to be paid at a nurse 2 rate for 4 hours per day and middle school secretary rate for 4 hours per day for a period of 192 days per year. This short number of days will be adjusted, the non-certified handbook. This is consistent with what she was making. We wanted to blend the rate if at all possible to make it easier for bookkeeping. So those would be the 2 additional recommendations that I would make based upon stimulus dollars.
Yep, so those both are together then in the same motion. Do we have a motion for those? Jim has made the motion. Gina with the second. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, old business, recommendation to approve school safety officer contracts. Mr. Schimpf?
Yeah, the last meeting, we discussed the school safety officer contracts. At that time, we talked about potentially increasing the amount we're paying to officers, and at the same time, increasing the length of the contract from a one-year renewal to a two-year renewal. The total amount that I'll be recommending that the board approve would be $40,000 for the SRO, safety officer at the South Campus, and $40,000 for the safety officer at the North Campus. We offset these funds through the SSSG grant each year. It pays for almost half, and in a good year, it pays for half of those costs for the corporation. There were a couple changes that were included in the contract, and I had highlighted those. One of those changes had to do with on the backside of the, well, I guess it's on the second page, it's not the backside. Letter I, under 5, says that the individual would remain at the campus for the entire day and refrain from leaving for anything except for emergencies, including lunchtime. Then down below there, and I'm looking at page 111 right now, number 10, we had said officers would not contact students via social media, texting, or have any direct communication with students or families except for in the event of an emergency. Building principal should be notified of any communication that occurs between the officer and student or families as is legally possible. And then the other addition was on page 112, number 14, and it was just successive terms every 2 years as opposed to a single year term. The other difference between these two is the Rockville Police Department is paid to the city or to the town, and then the funds are disseminated to them from there. The Sheriff's Department pays via 1099s, and so that's the other difference underneath that, the multiple asterisks on the last page. But I would ask the board to approve these as presented unless you have questions.
This is up from 36 a year, right?
Up from
Is that right?
36 a year.
And how is the addition of the remain at the campus for the entire day going to travel?
So it's difficult here on the south end of the corporation because from one building to the next, it's hard to know entirely. I know I've had a conversation with one of the officers already because he asked for clarification. And I said, look, I realize you may be in transit at one point or the other, but the point is we don't want people to disappear for long periods of time and have somebody go off to, Mexican restaurant or something and disappear. I mean, that's, of course he understood that. And I haven't said, obviously we're so appreciative of law enforcement for serving in this capacity for us. It's a great benefit that the corporation has, but we're just tightening up some things just to kind of help with language expectations.
When did you say, you submitted for the grant, right? And then you'll hear back
And I
when?
haven't heard back yet on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you typically?
It's probably
like
going to be
fall?
October, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? If there are none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Brandy has made the motion.
Second.
Zach with the second. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, new business. We have some donations. We always appreciate those. $50 from Otterburn United Methodist, $225 from Park County Community Foundation, and $200 from Fountain Trust. We appreciate all the donations. We get a lot of them. So, do we have a motion to approve? Kim's made the motion. Elise with the second. All those in favor? 7-0. Student transfers. Mr. Schimpf, you want to make some comments?
Yeah, we're obviously thankful that families have trusted us to bring their kids here and have transferred in. This doesn't always tell the full story because we don't see the transfers out. However, our numbers are on the increase at this time. What I've got is a breakdown here, and there are additional students that will pop up under miscellaneous because more transfer paperwork came in afterwards. But we've got one new 8th grader, 5 freshmen, 3 10th graders, 2 juniors, and 2 seniors that have all transferred in from various other school corporations, and we're thankful to have them here. And excited. So I would ask the board to approve those transfers in, if you would.
Do we have a motion? Elise has made the motion. Seconded by Gina. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, presentation of the 2022 school budget and permission to advertise. Mr. Shemp?
The most important thing tonight will be the request for permission to advertise. I'm going to forego the actual PowerPoint presentation. You have it in your packet there. Hopefully you're okay with that. But just to go through the budget presentation, starting on page 116, we're required first to have board approval to advertise. That's what I'll be requesting at the end of this tonight. And then we have to, on September 1st, have a public hearing on the budget. In the past, that has been at 4 o'clock, and that's what I've put down within the gateway documents that we have to submit to the state. If 4 o'clock on the 1st works well, that will be beneficial. Typically, we don't have a large number of people that come for that portion, but they're welcome to do so. Come and make public comment at that time. Then on the 15th, if the board approves tonight of the advertising, then it starts the process that we would culminate on the 15th, approval of the budget. Considerations of the budget. The budgets are created for 18 months in advance. The final budget is dictated by the DLGF. Okay, the tax rate's determined by the DLGF. We will advertise an amount, but they'll tell us how much we actually get. Actual funding is generated by ADM for the education fund, so that's your number of kids in class on count day. Then you've also got foundational and complexity, which contribute to education fund. Excise, financial institution, commercial vehicle excise, local property taxes, these all add to the other funds. And then you've got sources like ESSER, which the stimulus dollars are ESSER 1, 2, and 3. The first one is better known as CARES, so that would be an additional federal source. And then additional state money transfers, where we transfer from one account to the next. And operating business balance in each fund is also key to creating a budget. So the funds themselves, again, education fund is for direct classroom supplies. Operations is capital projects, transportation, bus, insurance, utilities. Debt service is past debt that's been taken on that's slowly being paid off. We've had that discussion many times. And then rainy day is used for unique situations. Then we get into the actual numbers of where we're at right now. Back in 2018, 2019, the student count for the corporation was 1146. In 1920, the student count fell a bit, 11 students to 1135. In 2020, 2021, we grew to 1155 in the fall and 1157 in spring. And currently, we're looking at an increase of 46 students to 1201, with 19 of those being virtual. Now, virtual students are funded at 85% now. They did go back to the 85%, but that's 19 at 85%. And we're up 46. Okay, not bad. If you look at the foundation basic amount, so the amounts each year you get for every kid at minimum, 2019 it was 5548. That grew to 5703 per student. Last year, for this school year, it's 5995 per student. And then in 22-23, because it's a biennium budget that the state approves, it'll be $6,235 for every student as the foundation amount. If there are any questions along the way, please feel free to ask. Beginning of the year education cash balances, I've laid out the cash balances for you to look at in education. Again, remember that's your fund that's paying mainly teachers. The account balances in 2019, it had gone down $272,000 from the previous year. In 2020, it had gone down $192,000. And then this year it has increased $964,000. Now, some of that, a great deal of that is due to decreasing the amount of money being moved from operations or to operations from that fund, because we can legally move 15% from education to operations. That was done such that there used to be dollars that were spent out of operations that found their way into the education fund. And some of the when those changes were made. So in comparison, if you look at the operations balances on the far right column, in 2020, there was a $700,000 increase, and then this past year, there was only a $183,000 increase. And that was a smaller increase because, again, those dollars didn't come over from education, is part of that story. And which I started to explain the changes in the balances. So why the changes in the balances? The increase in the education fund, it's due to multiple factors. One, veteran staff retiring, and after they have moved on, we tend to hire people with less experience tend to take their place. That's not necessarily a requirement. I love it when we can hire people with experience. We've had that happen a couple times this year, but the reality is that has impacted our cash balances. We've absorbed a few positions in a prior year. We've been good fiscal managers, and decreasing the transfers, as I said, has been a significant difference. One of the largest then becomes an increase in ADM. As you see the foundational amount increase each year, as your student count goes up and they increase that, it's a multiplier, right? With increased funding from the state, possibility of another strong ADM, I'd say the financial status of the corporation appears to be in a really strong position at this time, which is fantastic. And then probably one of the most important slides, I feel like, is on the bottom of 120. You've got tax rate comparisons there. You'll see that each year, the advertised amount is higher than the amount approved. And so the state, they could make it really easy for us, and they could say, here's exactly what you get. But sometimes I feel like they want us to try to mess up and ask for too little, and then they won't get to fund it. I mean, that's just, in all honesty, that's the way it feels. So we have to ask for a little bit more than, and then if they give us more than what we anticipate, we can reduce that if we need to do so. The advertised amount for 2022 is $16.956,437 for a budget. That's a rate of $1.3353, and that's based upon an 85% AV value. So you take the assessed value, you use 85%, and that's how you get to the rate. That will not be the rate we're approved. That is 4 cents roughly lower than the rate we advertised last year. So we're advertising 4 cents lower than the prior year. On page 121, these are the rates that we would actually advertise if you approve them. The education fund obviously is a zero rate because those dollars are all from the state based upon student numbers. Rockville debt service is pretty fixed at 42 cents. Turkey Run debt service, 0.1653. And then the operation fund would be 75 cents, and we also don't have a rate for rainy day. So the total rate and levy, as I said before, would be $1.3353 with the full levy of $5,051,086. Also requesting permission to advertise the CPF and bus replacement plans as required by the state, and those are buried toward the end of the next section, which starts on 122, which is your line-by-line item of the budget, which I know that you've gone through prior to today. But as you work up to page, let me get the page number for you. Page 149 has some of the CPF, the budget there. Any amount, any purchase more than $10,000, we have to list individually what we plan to purchase. Some we've talked about in the past, sometimes these end up being placeholders. For years, there was a marquee sign on there that has since gone away. It doesn't mean we won't ever look at that, but for right now, that's not as high a priority. So I would ask to advertise that in addition to page 150, which you've got estimated costs, and the transportation bus replacement fund, which is on page 156 is where it begins, the bus replacement fund. So we look at buses, when they're going to wear out, based upon history, number of years that we are able to use them and have reliable service. You'll see that activity buses are also listed there. One interesting note may be that I could see changes to this next year pending some recent information where we were informed that we could use small yellow buses with a little bit more flexibility on drivers. So there might be some changes in this next year when we actually go to order. But this is the budget and CPF as well as bus replacement plan that I would be asking the board permission to advertise.
All right, very well. Are there any questions for Mr. Schimpf on the budget?
I'm curious, the ADM is up. Do you know, is it elementary? Is it high school? Do you have a feel for where we're,
Yeah, it's actually across the board.
is it?
It's across the board, I'd say.
Okay.
And I thought I had a slide there that told you that amount. I'm sorry. that it's
No,
not
that's
there.
okay. I may have missed
Yeah.
it. I may have missed it.
Okay,
Okay, but across the
Yeah.
board, then it's not, okay.
right. It is across, it's, now, as far as kindergarten's concerned, I want to say we have something like 131 kindergartnens. So when you look at numbers, it's good to look at your youngest group of kids. Now, that also includes young fives, but 130 plus, actually, in that kindergarten group. When you look at those are the kids who are coming up. So 130 kindergartners are replacing, 90-ish seniors that graduated. So that's a big plus. There are some corporations, prior corporation I was at, they had 27 kids in their kindergarten, and they had 50 seniors. It's not a good position to be in. So we're fortunate in that.
Okay, other questions for Mr. Schimpf on the budget? Anybody? All right, if not, we need a motion to give permission to advertise.
So moved.
Brandy has made that motion. Second. Seconded by Jim. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Moving on, we need 2 or 3 board members to the bargaining team, correct?
Yep.
In the past, I think we've done 2 and then had a rotating one, or the other spot was just filled in by somebody who rotated.
Gina is the only member right now that was on last year, if I remember correctly.
So that sounds like somebody who could be on again, right? With experience? Would anybody like to be on the bargaining team?
I excuse myself from bargaining, so,
Brandy needs to
yeah, I
excuse
usually don't do
herself.
that.
It's tough for me because of work and everything. Really.
Gina has said she will do one of them.
I understand Zach probably is going to excuse himself also.
Right.
If my name was brought up, yeah, I was going to.
Yeah, you, me.
I know, you three can do it, and I'll remember.
I'll nominate Ken. I'll nominate Ken.
You need to nominate.
Kim, are you willing to do it? And then me and Elise and Jim could rotate for the 3rd spot? That work? All right.
Great, I'll get in contact with you soon.
All right, do we have a motion to approve all those?
So moved.
Brandy's made the motion.
Second.
Second by Zach. All
That exempted themselves.
absolutely. All those in favor?
We're happy to vote for you.
6. All those opposing? All those abstaining? Okay, moving on, high ability grant, Mr. Schimpf.
Yeah, each year we ask permission to approve the submission of the high ability grant. Lisa Reitzman has been working hard at this already, been spending a great deal of time trying to get this correct. And so I just ask the board for permission to submit that grant before its due date, August 31st. We're on it.
Very well. If there are no comments or questions, do we have a motion? Jean has made the motion. Elise with the second. All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, the tag grant.
Yeah, in addition to the higher ability grant, I'm asking the board to approve the teacher appreciation grant policy. We have to do this each year by law. And so the tag grant basically includes incentives for teachers who rate as either effective or highly effective based upon evaluations from last year. This is exactly the same language as it was last year and the year before.
Very well. Do we have a motion? Jim Reitzman's made the motion. Kim with the second. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, recommendation to add middle school principal to credit card holders.
Yeah, the board had approved a resolution a few meetings back there for credit cards. At that time, we did not have a middle school principal, and I'd like to recommend that Amanda Williams also be able to be added to that list for building level credit cards.
All right, do we have a motion? Kim has made the motion. Second by Elise. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, recommendation to increase corporation driver pay.
Yeah, it's a struggle. We know, we've talked about it many times, but I would recommend to increase the driver pay from $75 a day to $85 a day, and that includes substitute drivers also making $85 a day. With your approval, this language will be updated in the non-teaching or non-certified handbook.
If there are no questions or comments, do we have a motion? Jean has made the motion. Do we have a second? Second. Jim with a second. All those in favor? 6-0 or 7-0 vote. Transportation shuttles.
Yeah, I'm recommending to approve the shuttle rates. We've started the year with 4 corporation shuttles and 2 contractor shuttles. Corporation pay is in line with the non-certified handbook. However, the contractor pay needs to be approved each year. It's not part of the actual contract that they do. So I'm recommending that the board approve shuttle pay for contractors to be $85 as well. It was $78 prior to this for the last, I think, 4+ years. So it's an increase of $7 per route per day. With gas prices, I can understand this a little bit.
Are there questions? If not, do we have a motion? Kim's made a motion. Seconded by Elise. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. The daycare route.
Yeah, in addition to the shuttles, we also have a driver who does a quick route to a daycare, which saves us from having to have an additional bus and driver. He takes 30-plus kids some days over to a daycare quickly for a quick run. In the past, he's been paid $10 a day for that. I'm recommending that be moved to $15 a day.
There are no questions or comments. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Zach has made the motion.
I'll second.
Brandy with the second. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, recommendation to approve obsolete surplus equipment.
Okay, pages 164 to 171, you're going to see a list, a few different lists of equipments. There are some pictures. It's everything from chairs to weight room equipment, a compressor, office chairs, rolling computer desk, a slew of items, many of which have little to no value, but some that do have value. And so I do think it would be appropriate to have a sale for some of these items. Many of them are not worth putting into a cell. But I do think that we need to have some sort of sale, especially when it comes to items like a compressor or weight room equipment. I can see people wanting to purchase those items. So I'm asking the board for permission to make these items obsolete/surplus, and for me to be able to then go through and determine what are we going to sell, what's that look like, get a date over maybe the next couple months, put a sale together so that it's not taking up space for the rest of the year. That would be my request.
Very well. Are there any questions or comments?
I just have a quick question. So
Yeah.
like you said, mention the exercise equipment. So
Sure.
like if the high school wants to get rid of something, I assume they ask the junior high first before we, like, you know what I mean, to see if they could take it before we get rid of it.
And we should be doing that, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And the middle school, we did that. We had coaches come through at the middle school, at the high school, who were high school coaches and said, do you want this squat rack, or do you want that bench press, or, you know.
If there are no other questions, we have a motion.
So moved.
Brandy's made the motion. Second by Elise. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Okay, recommendation to approve payment on the Montezuma Clinic.
Okay, years ago, a lease with an option to purchase was entered into by the board with the building in Montezuma that was leased for the health clinic and for the vocational school. As part of that lease, the corporation is required to make a determination as to whether or not it wants to purchase by September of this year. So there was an option to purchase. If we want to, we need to notify the owner by September of this year. The building is currently leased by 4 school corporations: Southwest Park, South Vermilion, and North Vermilion, along with North Central Park. The other 3 corporations would be owners along with us if the board chooses to make that purchase, which is what my recommendation would be at this point. Our final payment is around, and I have to say around $49,000, because there have been the leases, any overage has been paying down. We actually budgeted $69,250, and because of additional payments along the way, we've been able to knock that down to $49,000 to be one of 4 owners on the building in Montezuma. And I would recommend that the board approve that purchase, unless you have any questions that we need to talk through.
Any comments, questions?
So if you, so say something needs done on the building, are we just splitting it 4
Yep.
ways? That'll be just what we do?
Yeah.
If there are no other questions, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Jim Reitzman with the motion. Gina with the second. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. Recommendation to approve staff list.
Yeah, on pages 172 to 176, you're going to see current staff list. That's as of August 2nd, 2021. It's a few days ago when this was printed off. We've obviously had a few additions tonight. There were a few more approvals, but this is the list up to date as of August 2nd. I know there are questions on occasion as far as, you know, who works with students full-time, who's with them part-time. I think this list answers some of that when you look at the different roles of individuals. And so just, I guess as much as anything, each of these individuals have already been approved as employees. So I don't know if you necessarily need to approve the list, but there's no harm in approving this list because it verifies some of the numbers for us. You've got the hourly breakdowns, but you've already approved all of that essentially. It's more for your information than anything.
Very well. I think we can approve it. Is there a motion? Kim's made the motion. Elise with a second. All those in favor? 6. All those,
I-
did you go yes?
Hold on, should we abstain? Like, should I, it's not money,
There- I
I think
but
it's okay to,
You're
To vote,
fine to
okay.
vote for it.
Pardon?
You're fine to vote
Okay,
for it.
okay.
7-0 vote then?
Yep.
Okay, recommendation to approve bus routes.
okay, so you've got an additional packet there. You might have seen it when you made it to your seat there. It's kind of thick. It's got a picture of a map on top of it. Looks like this. These are the bus routes to your left, Gina, I think. Yep. These are the bus routes for the current school year, and by law, we have to have those approved every year. And so I'm asking the board to approve the routes as presented. Obviously, we stretch as we have to. We've got an incident where we, as drivers go out, we may have to stretch a route here or there. And we even considered whether or not we need that Route 19 again. Would that make a difference? You know, as things change, there's obviously flexibility, but these are the routes as they stand today. When those transfer students come in, they change, because if we have to pick somebody up and go down a different road, it changes. But as a formality, we have to approve the routes every year.
Are there any questions or comments on the bus routes? If there are none, do I have a motion to approve them? Jean has made the motion.
Second.
Seconded by Kim. All those in favor? 7-0 vote. All right. That closes the book on the regular meeting. Let's move on to miscellaneous business.
Okay, miscellaneous there in front of you. I tried to shorten this up. I got it down to one page here. We've got a couple fundraisers that came in. Stephanie Studebaker would like to do a fundraiser with homecoming t-shirts. Makes sense to me for student council to do something like that. She's hoping to bring in $200 to $300. And Brittany Kimbrough is wanting to do a cheer clinic. Dollars would come in for high school cheer. She's hoping for $1,000. So I would ask the board to approve the fundraisers as presented there.
Very well. Are there questions or comments? If there are none, do we have a motion? Elise has made the motion. Seconded by Jim. All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, a couple more additions to the ECAs.
Yeah, a couple ECA positions, which actually there should be a position there that is Karina Gilstrap, should be included there. And you have her on your list? Okay.
She's on there.
Karina would be the math coach, math bowl coach for Turkey Run Elementary. And then Austin Petrillo and Pete Johnson, both as high school football volunteers.
Are there questions or comments? Do we have a motion? Kim's made the motion.
Second.
Seconded by Zach. All those in favor? 7-0. All right, bus route.
Yeah, I'm asking the board to approve Debbie DePlanty to run a route for us for life skills at an amount of $35 per day. As we share within the special ed co-op, we transfer back and forth students, and this is a route that we run with North Vermilion back and forth for a high schooler there. So I'd ask you to approve that, $35 a day.
Very well. If there's no questions, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Brandy's made the motion. Seconded by Jim. All those in favor? 7-0. Now, did we cover this next one
We've
already?
already covered this next one. And
So we'll move on to approve transfers.
Yeah, just wanted to bring up some middle school transfers that we've had come in. We've got, 19 additional students transferring into the middle school, 8 sixth graders, 6 seventh graders, 5 eighth graders. So that's great to see. I know we'll have some elementary paperwork yet to come through here soon, but great to see an increase there at the middle school.
Okay, do we have a motion? Kim's made the motion. Gina with a second. All those in favor? Let's call it 7-0. All right, and then field trips on the original miscellaneous business page.
Right, the only thing on field trips at that point was we actually had a second grade field trip that went this past week over to the garden. They wanted to catch the garden before it was fall. You know, it's time of year where gardens start to kind of fall apart. They wanted to get there this week, so I did approve for them to go on a second grade field trip over to the community garden. So hopefully that's.
So we need to approve that retroactively.
We might as well. Yeah.
Very well. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Brandy's made the motion. Kim with the second. All those in favor? 7-0. That shuts the door on miscellaneous business. Let's move on to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you an update. The gym floor at Rockville Elementary has been sanded. Preparations are being made for painting the floor. New padding is yet to be installed. We do have some painters lined up to quote some painting there and updating. I walked around with Mrs. Robinson, got some input from her along with Ash Overpeck, and she's wanting to get some things back up on the walls that shows some of the history and the tradition that, you know, the heritage, right, so to speak, of that building. And I think that'll be great, and it'll liven up the space. I know she also has talked about wanting to put some newer items in there. You know, it doesn't just have to be athletics, but if you've got a robotics team picture, that might be the place to put it. And so we'd like to celebrate that. And so looking forward to that space really taking on a little bit more vibrant life again. In addition, I'd like to give an overview, just a quick overview on the stimulus grants, because there have been questions along the way there. And so you have in your packet something that says ESSER 1 CARES breakdown. And this was that first stimulus that came through. And at that time, it felt like, wow, we have hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're giving us that we didn't expect. This is amazing and fantastic. We're so thankful. And then they started increasing it. And we continue to be thankful for that, and we're going to try to find ways to use it best on students and our schools to get the most academic impact. If you have specific questions on any of these, you're welcome to ask me, but I was trying to give a very, very general description here. Some of the descriptions that were given to the state, they're vague to give us some room for opportunity. For example, if you look at facilities, you know, you're going to see a dollar amount on the second page there under ESSER 2 breakdown. It says facility improvements in the amount of $54,656. The HVAC amount is the actual HVAC amount that we spent up at the middle school and Turkey Run Elementary. It's also worth talking about that briefly here since we're on that piece as far as air conditioning is concerned. The new chiller is working. However, the rooms over in Turkey Run Elementary, there are a number of rooms that are still warmer than we want them to be. And so there's some additional issues that we're going to have to address in those rooms. It sounds like that's an issue that's been there for a while. There are photographs of, we have a vent that goes along the roof. What happens is on a very hot day, we've cooled the air and it travels across the roof for 150 feet and it's not overly insulated. And so it warms up all the way there. So we're not getting really cool air pumped into the room. We've also had some issues with leaky valves there in the ceilings, and so that's part of it. We are working on it. We're working on it, and it's frustrating because you think, hey, if we spend that big chunk, this should have taken care of it. Well, the large chunk did take care of the chiller, but it doesn't entirely take care of making that air cooler than cool enough. So we've not given up on that, obviously. We want to keep working on it because we want teachers to be comfortable and kids to be comfortable so that it's a better environment to learn. So I wanted to circle back to that briefly here. Are there any specific questions as you look at these? Again, in some ways, like our yearly budget, there are some placeholders I've mentioned. There are a number of spots where you see we've spent on teachers, additional teaching positions. We were required to set aside 1% of ESSER 3, so $33,000 is required to go to enrichment programming, roughly 33, that's what I got approved. It's a little under that. Also $33,000 is supposed to go to after-school programming. I would love to see us have an active after-school program at Rockville Elementary like we have at Turkey Run Elementary. These dollars could possibly help with that. But we'd want to split them evenly between the two places as much as possible, or split them appropriate to the need, right? So if those dollars stand out for you, that's why you see something for enrichment and after school. Anything in particular, you have questions on this? I just kind of wanted to give you an overview on those dollar amounts. So none of these are totally exhausted at this point. You know, we spend and we request and we get reimbursed. That's essentially what happens. If you don't have any questions on that, I can shift over to Recon compensation for teachers. So the Recon Grant, again, that's a Rural Early College Network grant. It's where we're paying dual credit teachers additional dollars because we want to take care of our teachers and give them these extra dollars if at all possible, and it fits in the budget. The actual grant cell in Indianapolis required us to spend at least $28,000 by the end of this month. They said we needed to encumber that amount or it was going to be taken back because we hadn't spent the dollars. And so these dollars are to be spent on credentialing, so teachers are able to teach dual credit. And so you'll see a list of, I'll just hit the highlights here. During this year, any teacher teaching a dual credit course at Park Heritage High School will receive a $1,000 stipend. Point 2, any teacher who's teaching a dual credit course at Park Heritage High School has a content area master's degree relevant to the dual credit courses that they are teaching, are enrolled prior to October 1st, 2021 in a class for purposes of obtaining a content area master's, are credentialed through a CTE program or already credentialed by Ivy Tech or another post-secondary institution for courses that they are currently teaching, will receive a $1,250 stipend in addition to the $1,000 teaching dual credit stipend previously mentioned. Finally, any member of the school leadership team relevant to the Recon Grant will also receive a stipend of $1,000. That's going to put us right around $31,000. Our requirement was 28, but we have well over 50 that we needed to begin spending. And there are additional dollars that will roll in this year as well. So we wanted to get this into the teachers' hands. We're thankful for all the extra effort and time that it takes to do dual credit, and the kids benefit. So that's an update on Recon. Food pantry, just briefly on the food pantry, I know that they're wanting to get in there and get moving. I've had a couple discussions. We've got an insurance form that's been shared with me for a liability waiver. They've been discussing talking about Turkey Run's admin building, the former admin building at Turkey Run, talking about putting freezers in and those kinds of things, which brings up conversations about utilities. I think on some level, we would expect them to probably pay for those utilities, but I bring it up to the board because just because that's the expectation I have doesn't mean that that's something that shouldn't be discussed with the board. It's really your decision. I don't know what's appropriate there, but as we add freezers, we're going to add cost to the utilities. And at the same time, we also have to check to see even if that's a possibility, if the electrical can handle having additional appliances. So we're going to check into that, but kind of wanted to bring it up. And
Well, that wasn't talked about when they came to the board to begin with.
right.
So I think that's something that, they should maybe have to assume the cost. And you're right, it's the electrical, we may not have enough for one-pop breakers because some of them freezers may have to have their own circuits.
Right.
So, I think that would be up to them to figure all that out, have somebody come in.
I agree.
Do you need an answer on that this evening, or are you just throwing it out there so it's in the air?
Sounds like we're on the same page. I know they would like to hurry and get moving, but at the same time, we want to do it right. So we don't want to get in such a hurry that, we bring an appliance in and all of a sudden we're tripping the breaker and we're having issues there. Maybe it would be nice to have a drawing of what they think it would look like in that space and a little more details. Maybe it'd be good to ask the group to come back again and talk to the board. Is that what you would prefer?
I think they need to state how many freezers, there's a lot of questions.
I mean, surely they could do that informally with our maintenance
Okay.
staff or something to verify
Okay.
that things will work. And
And I can just give
I mean,
you
it's
an
a-
update.
it's a good project that's done by volunteers. I think certainly we want to make it as painless as we can, But I'm not sure, I don't disagree that they shouldn't. I did not hear freezers or anything mentioned when they presented. I thought it was just canned goods and whatnot, but. certainly think we want to be accommodating. It's only benefiting the kids and the families in our area,
Right.
and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, we don't want to put roadblocks up. It's just, we're just trying to have clarity. Yeah. Yep. Large animal enclosure, September 15th, my understanding, this will be brought back up at the town council to finally, potentially, a year and a half almost later, have the fence outside of the ag area here at the high school so that we can have large animals here periodically, not for long periods of time, so that students can be able to go out there and get some hands-on experience with animals and not have to spend most of the class traveling somewhere to go and see an animal somewhere.
Have we been waiting on them for a year and a half?
We've been waiting for some time. It was supposed to come up at the last meeting, and the last meeting got canceled. So we sure would have liked to have seen it happen way before now.
I would certainly think the Rockville Town Council could move a little faster than that into something like we're opening.
One of the things that slowed us up was that we had to have the list of all of the property owners within a certain distance to send a letter to. So that held us up. Now, after that meeting was canceled, the letter had to go out again, but it's going out again. It's been far slower than we wanted. That much I can say.
Certainly hope they're supportive of our education desires and would make that happen quickly.
Right. Yeah, the last thing I have in superintendent's report was just to mention the ADM, and we've mentioned it a couple times already. I mean, we've seen transfers in. Obviously, don't have the transfers out to show you, but currently, it looks like we're about 1201 at this time as a corporation, and so that's a good, strong position to be in. It's over 40 students increase, and fantastic. We're happy to have them. We're thankful people are trusting us with their kids every day. There's enough to be stressed about when it comes to taking care of kids every day right now in schools, and so we're thankful they're willing to do that. And that's it for my superintendent's report, unless you have any questions.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Schimpf on his report? If there are none, we'll move on to comments from the public. Are there any non-COVID related comments from the public, since that one was thoroughly covered? All right, comments from the public is closed. Our next meeting date is potentially next week, right?
Yeah, what day would you like to do that?
We were thinking Wednesday, correct?
Yeah, the 25th, I should have said, we've got the architect group coming through that we'll be wanting to get some input from board members, teachers, staff. That's 4 to 6. But it can be a different day if you need a different day. They're going to come here.
So what time were they planning on?
They're 4 to 6.
So maybe we could tentatively plan on August 25th at 6
Yeah.
here to cover that. And then we have a September 1st public hearing of the budget at 4 o'clock. Is that when you had that?
Yep, 4 o'clock for the public hearing. Do we have any need to meet after that? Sometimes we meet after that meeting.
Very well. And then September 15th at our regular meeting and the budget adoption. So if there is nothing else, which I hope there isn't, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
You're going to get in trouble.
Yes, you can't make it, can you? I should turn mine off.
How'd you guys know about this meeting?
Well, unfortunately, I have to admit, it says on the agenda.
Yeah, but on last agenda, it said meeting at middle school. How'd you guys know there was an executive meeting? I didn't get that email. Let me check. I don't believe you. I'll check right now. Oh, I didn't get a text message either. Huh? I believe it. I told Shinty to pay my speeding ticket.
Luckily, we didn't have that problem, so.
It wasn't in his week in review.
Well, I'm as guilty as you are, so.
Well, I'm not guilty. They're guilty. I gotta input all these dates.